From Oscar Steakhouse inside the Plaza Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, you're on the corner of Main Street. Welcome to the only podcast produced by and recorded in the Las Vegas Hotel Casino. From gaming to dining to entertainment to sports to Vegas history, this is the place to be for the inside scoop, because this is the place to be downtown. Now, here's Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel.
Welcome, everybody. I'm a little loud, Gary, a little loud. Welcome, everybody, to the Oscars Dinner Series. As Oscar said, it seems like we've got a lively crowd here tonight. My name is Jonathan Jossel. I'm the CEO here at the Plaza, and I want to thank you all for being here tonight. By way of introduction, we have Oscar Goodman, the former mayor of Las Vegas. And we have Carolyn Goodman, the greatest mayor of Las Vegas. A couple of other important people here tonight. My lovely son Noah Jossel's here with my wife Emily. And I want to take a minute to welcome Mark Bedane, the president of the Athletics, who's bringing baseball to Las Vegas, the Athletics. So thank you all for being here. For those of you that have never been to one of these, it's real simple. Oscar talks for about 35 minutes, then we do a Q&A, and you can ask him anything within reason. That's a new addition since the last dinner series. Within reason, you can ask him anything. And really there's no rules other than please don't talk while Oscar's talking. He really doesn't like that. Yeah, fair? I don't like them either. Yeah, well, okay. And if you've missed any of the dinner series, but you really enjoy it, you can go back and hear them all on a podcast called On the Corner of Main Street. So I don't exactly know the subject of tonight's story. I know there's a surprise in here. And at the end of the dinner, your menu has a picture on the back, and you can ask Oscar to sign it for you because it's a collector's item. And so with that, I will turn it over to Oscar Goodman.
Thank you. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's good seeing you all here. A lot of familiar faces, a lot of new faces, a lot of ugly faces. It's a wonderful thing. But you have to understand that I'm the boss up here. And if there are any wise guys out there who are going to try to interrupt me and ruin my train of thought, you'll ruin it so badly I won't be able to remember anything, because my wife says you get halfway through an answer and you forgot what you're talking about. Oh boy. Oh my goodness, that's a secret bag there. We're going to have a real good time tonight, because I could tell that this audience is not what one would call a trained audience. But I'm going to teach you a couple of things tonight, I think, and then I'm going to quiz you on whether or not you know what I'm talking about, and see whether or not you know the answer to the quiz. The first thing is, how many have sat on a jury? It amazes me that there are so few of you. I guess most of you were probably ignorant and couldn't answer the judge's questions or the lawyer's questions, but that doesn't matter. Here I'm off again. I'm off my script. But I can't tell you that whenever I talk about jurors, I think that they're very dumb. I had one juror, Mr. Fadim. I always talk about Mr. Fadim. I had Mr. Fadim on a case that I had in San Diego, and he was a juror. And you know, those on jury duty remember that the judge always says, when you first come in now, you're going to go and have a recess, and you're not supposed to talk about the case or listen to anything on the radio or TV about the case, and you just don't do anything, just pay attention to what's happening in the jury room, and everyone's going like this. And we get midway through the trial, and Fadim's hand goes up, and the judge said, "Mr. Fadim?" And Fadim says, "Yes, Judge." He's looking around like this. "Yes, Judge. You have a question?" And the judge says, "Okay, ask me the question." And everyone's listening to him. He says, "You know, Judge, that thing that you tell us every time we take a break, Well, I was looking for it in the paper last night and couldn't find it. Now, see, my wife is the only one who loves me in this entire room here. It's unbelievable. Chesnoff loves me too. And Chesnoff was one of the people who read the story in the RJ. Is Mr. Katz here? Is he paying? Are you paying tonight? He's not paying. Okay. But he wrote a very nice story about my rat that I was going to bring. I had a rat, and I kept it in my little office back there. The rat was very important to my life, and I hadn't used the rat for a long time. And then when I had the rat brought to my house, I opened up the box that the rat was in, and somebody, I don't know whether the right word is desiccated or decimated my poor rat, and its insides were falling out, and I did anything I could to get the rat back in good shape. I took out Carolyn's sewing bin or whatever. What do you call that thing?
The sewing kit.
Sewing kit, and tried to sew it up and commit a surgery on it, but the rat was too far gone, and I wanted to give it a decent burial, so I buried it in our garbage can. And the amazing part about it, the next morning I went out to see how the rat was doing, buried in our garbage can, and somebody had stolen my rat. So Mr. Katz wrote a story about the rat, and the rat, you'll hear what I do with the rat while I go along with my speech. Now, when you came in here, did you see well, let me put it this way. When I was a youngster, my parents would take me to Sunday school, and I went through Sunday school in the morning, and then they would take me over to the Philadelphia Art Museum. This is all part of the speech, sweetheart. I'm not making this up. I'm not losing my train of thought. And I would go up the steps. That's before Rocky. I would not run up the steps because I'd never run in my life. I could barely walk now, but I didn't run up. I walked up. I trudged up. I got up there, and went inside. My parents thought, "Boy, what a smart kid this is." Here he's going inside. It's a wonderful thing. He's going to see the Rembrandts and the Cézannes and all the wonderful paintings. Little did they know I went up there because the Philadelphia Art Museum had one of the best armor collections in the world, and I would love to go in there and see the knights in armor. And there were knights in armor going all the way back to the time of David and Goliath. And when I was preparing for this speech this week, it brought all of that back to me, and I thought to myself, those were very, very special days because I was a big fan of David, and I really disliked Goliath. It was like my law practice. I love my clients, loved the people I worked with, and I hated the other side. And Goliath was a giant of a man, in reality, a Philistine from Gath, and he was challenging the Jewish people who were out in the field where David was taking care of sheep and cattle and the like, and David volunteered to fight Goliath, and little David gets smooth stones, and he gets a slingshot, and he gives it one of these things, and whoop, hits Goliath right here. It kills Goliath right on the spot. And from that point on, my whole life was patterned after David and Goliath. I always looked at myself as David going into the courtroom against the prosecution, which represented to me Goliath. And I figured that their job was to make sure that justice was going to be done. And they were the lyingest group of people that anybody could ever imagine. They've abused every right that human beings have. So now coming out, but I was lucky enough to practice in the old days when it was a slice of Las Vegas, and I was able to really expose them for violating people's constitutional rights, and showing how prosecutors were engaging in misconduct. And I woke up every morning, I knew I was in for a fight, and that's why I love the law practice, and it was a wonderful thing. And a case starts off with usually in the federal system, where most of my cases were, with an indictment. An indictment was a charge which is returned by a grand jury, and the ones who run an indictment are lawyers, and the primary lawyers were sent out by Bobby Kennedy as part of a strike force that was following the edict of one of the nastiest human beings who ever lived, a guy by the name of Joe Yablonsky, who was in charge of the local FBI office here. And Yablonsky was a liar and a cheat, and he came out here with his wife, and the two of them stood there, and they looked at us who lived here in Las Vegas with such disdain, that how could people live in Las Vegas? And he said, I am going to plant the American flag in the Nevada desert. That was his opening salvo. That was the first punch that he threw. And I said to myself, over my dead body, and it almost came to that, to be quite honest with you, because there was a hate affair that was going on between Yablonsky and myself. He said, I'm going to get myself a white-haired senator. It's hard to tell whether he was talking about Paul Laxalt. I'm getting myself a hood out of Chicago who came to Las Vegas, whether that was Tony Spilotro. And he said, I'm going to get myself a corrupt judge who was Harry Claiborne, who was one of the best judges Las Vegas ever had. And the only thing Claiborne did is he stood up for the citizens, making sure that everybody got a fair shake. And Yablonsky and myself and other lawyers with whom I worked, the sides lined up real good and real fast, and it was a battle every single day. Every morning I woke up, I knew I was going to face a grand jury, I was going to have my fees taken away, and I had to fight to get them. It's not hard enough to win a case, not hard enough to get the money from the client, but once you get it, and then these government Nazis would go to court and they would try to steal my money from me. And fortunately, I was able to hide enough of them in my backyard until Carolyn and I had a bit of a tiff. And I was scared that the FBI would get to my money before she was able to get the metal detector out and find it for herself. But she understood that all I was trying to do was take care of the family, and that was a very interesting time. And we had a good fight. And there's a statue. Has everyone seen the statue out there? You should see it. It's a great statue. It's of Tony Spelatro. This is the only place in the world where Tony Spelatro gets applauded. It was of Tony Spelatro and myself. I had just come back from a case in Kansas City, and Spelatro was waiting for me to come back because he did not want Chesnoff to represent him even on a simple bail hearing. And he said he'd just soon stay in prison forever than to have Chesnoff there taking care of him. He'd probably end up playing football for the Raiders or something. And he said, I'm not going to see anybody except my lawyer and my friend Oscar Goodman. And you'll see I'm handing him a piece of paper. And the piece of paper is called an indictment. And that is a charge which is brought by a grand jury without any kind of defense, nor the defendant himself before the grand jury. They just deliberate it. And the old saying goes that the government, if they want to, they can indict a ham sandwich. And that's what I said to Tony, don't get upset. He said, get upset? He said, do you see what's on that indictment? And you'll see it out there. The indictment says, United States of America versus Anthony Spelatro. And he said, do you see that, Oscar? I said, I sure do. He says, well, that doesn't seem fair. Well, I said, don't worry about it, Tony. You have me as your lawyer, and I'm going to beat them up and make them pay for what they've done to you and your family and all the people that are representing here in the community. And it was, as I say, it was a real fight. It was a real struggle, but I loved every single day. And then it comes time for jury selection. Does anybody ever sit on a jury? You sat on a jury? Grand jury. I don't even know the difference. I try to tell you the difference. Oh, sorry. Did anyone? You sat on a jury? What kind of case? The what? A federal or state? Probably a state case, right? You're worth Fadim. You don't know. You don't even know where you were when you were sitting on the jury. You were the kind of jury I was looking for. Oh, that's a good thing. And the first thing you do I did it, and here are some of the tricks of the trade. I figure anybody could sit on a jury, except everybody in the room, except these two people, because they were probably disqualified. And because you couldn't pass an IQ test with the way you're going so far. Jeez. And I was didn't deviate too much. And I said to myself, what does who really guides a grand jury? Who's going to stand in the way of a citizen when a case is going to go either before a petty jury, which is a jury of 12, or in a federal criminal case, the government has to get at least 12 to nothing to win, and 11 to 1 is what's called a hung jury, and many times you're happy just to get the hung jury, but they were very careful about who they selected, and I figured out that the best kind of jury that you want is with a four-person, and think about it. Anybody could take part in a jury that finds somebody guilty. That's not interesting. You know, you expect that. 99% of the federal cases, criminal cases, end up with guilty verdicts. But if you get a not guilty, that's stuff for a book. And I would pick my jurors based on the fact that I thought that the one who ended up to be the four-person, if that person wanted to write a book, then I'm halfway home, because he would be able to dictate something interesting when the case was over, and he would hold out in being responsible for leading a jury. The next thing you don't want, and this is very interesting, you don't want a naturalized citizen on your jury, because I don't know whether any of you have, pardon me? What? Who talked? I'm going to send you back to some country that is language I don't even understand. And it's all right, Carolyn, I'm not getting off of the point. But a naturalized citizen, when they take the oath here, has anybody ever become a naturalized citizen who are here? Other than Chestnut's client, who was a traitor and a spy? Who? Where's Tina? Where's Tina? Tina, have you been naturalized? Yes. You remember it? What? She can't speak English. How can she be naturalized? What country are you from?
Hey, come on, Dina. Uzbekistan. Have you heard of it?
What? Uzbekistan. The last person I know from Uzbekistan was a local judge here, Lloyd George, and he used to go over and teach the Uzbekians. Is that what they're called? Yeah, about our. It's better be sure. About our Constitution, and he didn't understand one word of our Constitution. But you know, when you took that, you had to pledge that. No, don't you dare.
So they can see.
I don't want them to see. They had to be. Now you got me. Now I'm in trouble. You got me off. You know, you gave up. You renounced your citizenship from Uzbekistan.
I did.
And that tells me about somebody. They want to be a United States citizen so much that they will they'll do anything that the government tells them to do. And that includes, if they sit on a jury and a prosecutor says to do something, they will do it because that's the way their mind is trained, and they really don't care about the individual as much as doing what the prosecutors want them to do. Is that a fair statement? What did she say?
Her husband's saying yes, you're right.
Well, at least you have one smart person in your family. No, isn't that right? I mean, a prosecutor tells you to do something, you're going to do it. If you're not especially if you choose to give up your natural country. And I don't want those people on my jury because they follow whatever the prosecutor wants them to follow, and very difficult to get around that. And then all I'm trying to do is to make sure that the government does its job right, that the Constitution of the United States is protected, nothing more, nothing less, and never had a client who complained if they felt that I was able to do that, and that's the way the system worked. It's only when they felt that their rights were being abused by a prosecutor, and there was plenty of abuse around here, and nobody stood in their way. Then they didn't like it, and they wanted a lawyer who was able to stand and make sure that he was able to protect your rights. And the thing that bothered me more than anything was not being able to really get into what a jury should be composed of. And I started to ask questions, and the judge says, oh, I love these judges, move on. I'm looking around, who's supposed to move on? They're trying to send my client to the electric chair. He wants me to move on. He says, you're holding the jury up, move on. I said, wait, whoa. I'm just trying to find out a little bit about these people. I want to find out what kind of decals they have on their car, because you could tell so much about somebody with a decal on their car. I want to find out whether they had a tattoo, although that's changed over the years. In the old days, when I was actively practicing, if a woman had a tattoo, that meant she was independent. Now, if she doesn't have a tattoo, that means she's, what is she? What's wrong with that? This is part of the speech. This isn't making it up. Have I gone too long already? All right. And so those are things. And here's a real trick that I learned. How many months are there in a year? 12. And I wanted to know what a person's birthday was. And the judge says, what are you doing, Mr. Goodman? They're busy people. What are you asking them what their birthday was? Because if their birthday was the same as my birthday on the Zodiac, and I was able to get a Leo to be on my jury because I'm a Leo, and I let them know, well, there are two Leos here. I let them know that we both be in this together. They would root for me because of the fact that I was a Leo. And I don't know whether anybody ever did that before, but it worked invariably that I was able to get jurors that I could relate to because of the fact they were of the same sign or the same birth date and that kind of thing, and that was very good. The next thing that was so important is that I tried to be friendly with the judge's staff because they do you more good than any 10 judges can do you. And I had a couple of people who sort of liked me, they got a kick out of me, and when the jury saw that a judge's staff, which was regular people who they related to, sort of like this crazy lawyer, they started to root for me. And I see my friend from Detroit, Danny, he comes in from Detroit to hear these speeches. And isn't that the truth? They actually root for you, and they hate the prosecutors because the prosecutors are lying cheats, and they use these rats to make unconscionable deals with. and to get the rat, in order to cooperate with the government and give the rat whatever the rat wants, and they were able to convince the rat that you're helping the government, and Goodman's client don't need any help, but the government sure could use you. And they turned these people, as far as I was concerned, they were breeding perjury and supporting lies. And I wasn't about to tolerate that, but once you were able to show that what they were doing was wrong, then the rooting began. And one of the things that they did, two things in particular. One, there's a form that the FBI agents would fill out after an interview. It's called a 302. If anybody has ever been involved as a defendant in a criminal case, they were entitled, at least that's what the law says, to look at the 302s that an FBI agent would write. And the FBI agent would put down whatever they felt they were being told by a witness. And I would invariably say to an FBI agent, and this is where the belief by the jury began to crumble as far as their great government was concerned, I would ask the FBI agent, well, you had a recorder, didn't you? Now listen to this one. Yeah, we had a recorder. I said, well, why didn't you use the recorder? Why are you making a handwritten note? Well, we believe that our handwritten notes are more reliable than a recorder. Well, with that one, you look at the jury and they start going like this. They know that something's up here and there's something that's askew, and they listen a little more carefully. And then they understand that the government has these people who are rats under their control, and they make unconscionable deals with them where they promise them this and they promise them that, and at the end of the day they give them inordinate sums of money in order to elicit their testimony, and their testimony is exactly what the government wants them to say. And the government, when I say the government, these prosecutors who couldn't try a case out of a paper bag, but in a situation where a judge is protecting them, or in a grand jury room where nobody is against them, they get these people to say whatever they want to say. And I would ask a judge for a timeout, and I had two reasons I wanted timeout. So one, there's a ball game, and there was a phone on the second floor of the federal building, and we were getting to a very important part of the ball game, and I raised my hand and I said to the judge, I have to go to the bathroom, Judge, because I had to get down. I didn't have a bet on the ball game, so they let me out. I made my bet. I came back, and we continued on with the trial. And then the other time was when I saw that they would tell these rats exactly wanted the rat to testify to. And I had a abiding dislike, a loathsomeness for the rats, and I had more of a loathsomeness for the government agents who took advantage of these rats, and they would say whatever they wanted the rat to say. And the jury didn't believe that until I began to use this little gimmick, but it said it better than anybody. Sweetheart, do you have my, not that, not yet. I need your lipstick I need. I'm not going to put lipstick on. Yes, please. I go in front of the jury.
They can't hear you.
Repeat it then.
He would go in front of the jury. He's holding lipstick in his hands. And he doesn't know how to open it, which is good. And now it's open.
Okay. I would take my left hand.
He would take his left hand. I feel like I'm doing an oath. And now he's drawing with lipstick on his hand. with red lipstick. I don't know what he's doing. This is...
Yes, you're showing your age.
What is it?
Senor Wences.
Wait, Mike, back.
Right.
Wait. Okay.
And then I could give it two little eyes, and it would look like this. Well, they're paying. They're paying. Thank you. I'm going to show it. Boy, well, you've been picking on me. Okay. I would take my hand like this and I say, "What's your name?" And he would say, "Johnny Rat." I said, "Well, I hate you." And he would go, "Well, that's too bad." And he would say whatever the prosecutor wanted him to say, and all the prosecutor had to do was talk to the rat, and the rat would answer the questions. So after a while, in order to make the point, I brought a surprise into the courtroom. And this is interesting. Up until my Chagra case, where Judge Wood was killed down in Texas, there was no security at airports or in courthouses. It was wide open. And after the judge was assassinated down there, then they started to search people. And I wouldn't be able to bring my surprise witness forward at that time because when the judge was assassinated, they put up all the security and the gates and the fences that you find at the airport with the TSA and everything. And I had my rat with me, and I would carry on conversations with my rat. Do my friends from Kansas City see my rat? Okay, it's a very important rat. And what I would say to the jury is, I hate rats. And then I would, no, I have to take it up. Thank you. I would bring this bag into court with me, and all the jury paid attention to was the bag. They didn't hear any stupid question that I was asking. They didn't hear any stupid answer. All they know is, what does this lawyer want to do with a bag? So I would say, "Do you know, rat, I hate you." And the rat's looking at me like I'm nuts. And I said, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what I'd like to do is I'd like to strangle the rat." And I reach inside, and I had my rat. This is a giant rat. I had my rat, and I would take it by the tail, and I would start banging it on the rostrum. "You dirty rat, you dirty rat." And by the time I got through, the jury, they were more fascinated with the rat than anything I had to say, and anything that the prosecutor had to say. And the rat who was testifying, he was scared to death, because if I'm calling out a rat against him, what's the next thing that Goodman's going to do? And rats have stood me in good stead. This is a good rat. And Sam, I thank you for the rat. Thank you very, very much. It's a very cool rat, and it's very nice. And the last thing that was taking place was all right, that's enough. The government in the Chagra case, they spent $11 million on the investigation into the assassination of the judge down there. It was the second most money ever spent by the government, other than the Kennedy assassination. And they had what was called a diorama. And a diorama was a big, about 3 times the size of David DeHaan's table there, and it had the whole apartment complex where the judge was staying prior to a jury selection down in Texas. And the judge got blown away with the shotgun, and the government spent millions of dollars on this diorama, and the FBI agent who was in charge of it said, we spent so much money on this and spent so much time on it, and this is verifiable. He said, we had more FBI agents get divorced as a result of working on this diorama because it was so important to our case. And I'm looking, and every once in a while you get lucky. Every once in a while you get real lucky. And what took place with this diorama was they had every apartment building in the complex with its louvers on the window, every car that was on the property, and this was happening in May, that they had pictures taken and they repeated them of every single brick, basically, shutter, stairway that was at the judge's complex, and the judge was going out to his car, and when he was getting into his car, he noticed that his tires had been flattened, and he got shot in the back, and his spine was splintered into a million different pieces, and he died right on the spot. And they were so proud of themselves, and they get on the stand, and the guy who put the diorama said, we spent so much time on this. And I said, is this as good as the 302, which is better than the recorder? Is this has the same veracity? Absolutely. And I said, you checked it a lot, didn't you? Absolutely. Well, it turns out that I said to the judge's clerk, I said, Miss Burroughs, do you have any Kleenex? And she says, yes. And I said, could I have a piece of Kleenex? And I said, do you have a green pen? Is my green pen in there, sweetheart? Oh, my pocket, that's where it's supposed to be. And what happened? No, I love this rush. Pardon me for, it's indelible. Do not wipe it off. So I said, is this as accurate as your other testimony? He says, we spent millions of dollars, Mr. Goodman. This is exact to the eighth of an inch. I said, do you realize what month the judge was shot? He said, in May. I said, correct. And isn't there something wrong with your diorama? They said, no, it's just the way it would have looked at the time he was shot. Well, all of the trees were barren. And I went to the clerk and I got her green pen, which is in my right pocket. And I said, Miss Burroughs, can I borrow your pen? The judge said, what are you wasting their time for, Mr. Goodman? I was always wasting people's time, they said. I said, well, I want to tell the jury what happened here as far as making up this diorama. Move on. That's what these judges used to say to me, Mr. Goodman. You're taking up everybody's time. And I got the trees that they had on the diorama, each one was empty of foliage. And I began to take napkins out of my pocket, and I said, Miss Burroughs, would you happen to have a green magic marker? And the judge says, what are you wasting our time for? And I would take the magic marker, and I would start going like this in front of the jury. And I would make each piece of Kleenex green, like leaves on a tree, and I would stick the Kleenex on top of these barren trees, which had to be filled with foliage, and show the jury that it was impossible for the witness to have testified. that they were able to. I'm okay. That they were able to trace the trajectory of the shot, because there's no way in the world that the shot could have gone through the foliage with the way they had it. Surely there was not a leaf on a tree, but when you put the leaves on and they saw it like that, then they started to shake their head, and I was fortunate enough to get a not guilty on that case, and that was. That's okay. I appreciate that, but I like the best part about that case is the co-defendants went to trial without Chagra and myself, and I didn't like the fact that they were found guilty, but they were found guilty in the first trial, and then they severed our case away from that case. We went down to Florida to Jackson when we tried Chagra's case, and they found him not guilty, and Chagra would say that it was the greatest trial of the century, and from that, everything was wonderful as far as the practice was concerned, because other than football players who go to UNLV, I got every case in the country. But, oh, he's awake. That's good. All right. Okay, I think that I've unwelcomed my stay, but it's a pleasure being with you, because you laughed at all the wrong spots. You smiled at all the wrong spots, but I think you may have had a good time, and that's the important thing. And this is my favorite time, and that is when you could ask me anything you want, about anything. You could even ask how I like my drink. You could even ask me whether I'm going to be on a podcast with Nick. Nick can't hear. It's going to be a great podcast. You'll ask him a question. Nick doesn't know what's happening half the time, and when he does, he can't hear. So,
Thank you, Oscar. And before we go to the Q&A, I just want to take a minute to thank the Oscars team that puts together this dinner series. If you haven't met Courtney, she's the gatekeeper. Courtney, Gatsby, Chef Ben, and all the team that makes this possible. It's not easy to put this together and put out the food like they do, so great job to you guys. And this hat that I'm wearing is the new Oscars merchandise that you can maybe one day get you, but we don't have enough of them right now. So we will do the Q&A, and you've had your hand up the whole time, so take it away. So the question is, your father was the police chief in the late 70s, early 80s. He's putting people in jail while Oscar was getting them out. And your favorite movies are Goodfellas and Casino, and Oscar, were you a consultant in either of those movies?
well, I certainly wouldn't be a consultant in a movie that had Frank Collada in it, because he was the rat of rats. He was what the government did to protect this guy. He did some petty burglaries, and he also told the government, or they told him, but that he killed 4 people, and they forgot to tell the judge who was sentencing him on the burglaries, and instead of getting him what he deserved, they just sentenced him to a time served. So he walked away while all of his friends were going away forever. Now, was your father on the police force here? Oh, I know him very well. He was on the probation commission too. He was a ruthless.
I asked him if he remembered you, and he said he was very good at his job.
Well, that's very good. I'm sorry your father wasn't. No, Dennis is a good guy. Is he still around?
Yes, he turned 87 yesterday.
That's amazing. Tell him I say hey, will you, please? I thought he was going to run for office.
He was judge for judge. He didn't get it. It's okay.
Well, it's not okay. It's guys like him that would have been a good judge. I'm serious. Dennison's a good guy, so please tell him I say hi. I appreciate it. Yes.
We actually have coming to you next. We have a question that's come in via text. Did you ever come across the Chicago guys, Johnny Roselli, Frankie the German, Larry Newman? It's a team member at Oscars. I really wanted to ask you that.
Well, yes, we'll do it one at a time. Frankie the German Schweiz was his name. And Schweiz's daughter was on that TV program, something of, Ladies of Chicago or something like that. You know, they had different cities where Housewives of Chicago. Now I know what she does when she's retired. She watches Housewives of Chicago. That's unbelievable, sweetheart. A former college graduate who was a great mayor, and you're watching Housewives? Well, and that's another beef that I had. It wasn't until Schweiz had been arrested and he told the FBI that he had a contract out on Spilotro, Spilatro's brother, and myself. He had an Uzi, and he was assigned by the guys in Chicago to kill Tony and to kill Michael, and they said, and if Oscar's in the way, you may as well kill him too. And the FBI overheard this, and they never even bothered to tell me about it. So I have no use for the FBI, I really don't. They would have just... What was the question?
Did you ever come across Johnny Roselli, Frank the German, Larry
I did not know Frank Roselli. He ended up in the Biscayne Bay outside... Johnny Roselli. Well, I said John. Frank, John, what different... He ended up in a barrel. Maybe he had something to do with Lake Mead and the guy in the barrel there. I don't know, but they Johnny Roselli. Larry Newman. I knew Larry Newman was probably Harrelson, who was the trigger man in the judge's assassination. He was about as cold-blooded as any human being I ever saw. You know, when you look at somebody who has robin blue eyes, they have a little spot, like a black spot in the middle. What's that, an iris? An iris? Yes. What? Little black thing in the middle. And boy, oh boy. And I'm telling everybody she's the smartest mayor that ever lived. And I knew Newman. He was a good killer. He was indiscriminate. If you wanted somebody killed, you go to Newman. He'll kill him for you. And it was very reasonable. And as far as Roselli, that's before my time, really.
Thank you. All right, over there. So, great question, thank you. So the question is, Vegas was allegedly many suspect characters, but some of the not so suspect characters like Jay Sarno, Kirk Kerkorian, did you ever interface with them?
Oh yes, I represented Jay on a $87,000 bribe to an IRS agent, and he fired me, but then I wouldn't leave the courtroom, so I stayed, and he paid me, and the judge found him not guilty on what was called a Rule 29, where the judge felt that the government did not reach its burden, and Jay was a very wonderful, smart fella. People give Steve Wynn credit for the Las Vegas that we know today as far as the architecture. It was Sarno, not even close, who was the one who thought about the theme resorts. He was just before his time. He designed the Circus, and he designed Caesars, and he was a brilliant guy, but he was a gourmand, and everything he did to excess. He ate too much, he drank too much, he played too much golf, and he had women coming out of his ears. So Jay had his issues. And who was the other Kerkorian? We saw Kerkorian once a year. We were invited over to Phyllis McGuire's home, where she gave a what was that?
Keep going.
Oh, I'm going to have him ejected. Jesus Christ. Kerkorian was a brilliant guy who very shy and very good at what he did, and Carolyn and I were friendly with him, and he really was. I have nothing bad to say about Kerkorian. I think he was very, very good for our community, and the fact that they named the medical school after him is a tribute to him and a tribute to those who contributed to it.
Thank you. I'm Vegas Paulie C. I'm surprised you're so quiet tonight. No questions. Scott Robin, Vital Vegas, very quiet tonight. There we go. That's what I'll come to you next. That was what I was waiting for. Okay, over here.
We're from Chicago. My family knows a lot of people. My mom wants to know what's the scariest situation you've ever been in?
Great question. They're from Chicago, and they want to know what's the scariest situation you've ever been in.
No, you didn't get me, but I've had several scary situations, that's all. I think one was I was down in Tyler, Texas on a case representing a biker, and the other bikers on the other side, so to speak, they were driving around the hotel all night long trying to threaten me from representing my client. And I had the law enforcement people down there telling me I better get out of town because the bikers are going to kill me, and they meant it. But more important than that, the hotel which I stayed at, my memory's still good, sweetheart, was called the Golden Eagle in Tyler, Texas. And it's the first and last time, thank God, in my case I saw bed lice, or what are the... bed lice, the kind that stick to your private parts. And my sink was full of bed lice, so I did not sleep that night. I just stayed up all night, and then I went downstairs, and there were a whole bunch of bikers waiting for me downstairs to kill me. So I figured, what was worse, getting whatever bed lice give you. And Carolyn would not believe if I brought that home. So I figured that I better just go downstairs and run through the lobby and get to the courthouse fast enough. But I did a good job in that case. My client was charged with a robbery, a bank robbery, and when he was escaping, the guard shot him in the spine, and he was in a position where he was unable to walk, and the jury felt sorry for him. And down in Texas, they sentence you. The jury sentences you, not a judge. And they felt so sorry for this fella because they felt sorry for his lawyer because I told him about the bed lice, and they were a little embarrassed to have bed lice in their community, so they gave the client a pass.
Thank you. Scott?
Where's Scott?
He's over there. Look at his t-shirt as well.
Oh, that's a Scott.
I wanted to know if your casino co-stars, if you're still in touch with them, like Pesci and De Niro and those folks.
Are you still in touch with your casino co-stars, Pesci, De Niro, Sharon Stone?
Yes. Sharon Stone, when she comes to town, she always calls Carolyn, and they have nice chat together, and we keep on talking about having a reunion to which none of you will be invited because you're dull and you're boring, and you would put this poor Sharon Stone to sleep. as far as Pesci's concerned, you wouldn't want to be with him because he smells from a cigar so bad. But De Niro is he is aces. This guy is all right. All he could do was wait to leave our home so he could go over and pick up some broad. Pardon me.
And I'll give the mic to you.
I'm going to close this out with something really sweet. So, Oscar, in 2012, do you remember when we opened the Mob Museum? And we had a contest with Vegas.com for 7 couples across the country to come renew their vows in the courtroom with you presiding. And you told me, Melissa, I don't have a license to officiate a wedding. What do I do? Well, universallifechurch.com. If you have a pulse and an email, you can get a license to officiate a wedding. So, Universal Life Church was so titillated that Oscar Goodman, former Las Vegas mayor and former go-to defense attorney to the mob, they put out a press release. And I have to just read the first couple of sentences. Former Las Vegas mayor and notorious lawyer for the old mob, Oscar B. Goodman, has repented and seen the light. The Spirit has compelled him to get ordained with the monastery and begin his new heavenly career as a Universal Life Church wedding minister. And then it goes on to talk about what you're going to do. I mean, this press release was insane. Brother Goodman enjoyed an exciting career as a young public defense attorney who later rose to become Las Vegas's most popular mayor of all time. That was before you came on the scene. An office he held from 1999 to 2011. It goes on and on and on, and it closes with, as His Honor has become an ordained minister, the Universal Life Church Monastery prays, everyone will come to understand we are all children of the same universe, no greater, no greater than the trees and no lesser than the stars. We all have a right to be here. Or not, I don't know.
Did I say that?
No.
Oh.
No, they did.
Well,
They made that up.
you can bet they made that up. No, but I was a Universal Life minister until they asked me to pay tuition or something like that. And it was a real pain in the neck because I would get phone calls on Saturday and Sunday, and people wanted me to conduct weddings, and I knew that the marriages wouldn't stick. So, and I tried to punish them, with the fee, and the fee varied from person to person. So, Jonathan, if I see your hand go out one more time, I'm going to bite it.
I actually don't think there was a question in there. But very, very nice. We will do 2 more. We'll do 2 more. Over there. Oh, God. That's a whole dinner series in and of itself. It's about, if you could, in a couple of minutes. Do you know anything about the Black Book?
The most unconstitutional, rotten vehicle that was created by a state of unconstitutionally run politicians, and I've got nothing but disdain for it. You could be entered into this book of excluded persons, not allowed to take a urination from here to Reno if you went into a gas station that had slot machines, because that was against the law that they set up in the Black Book. And I'll tell you this, Professor Green, who's here, and he's asleep. He's usually, if you watch him on TV, he's always asleep, but he told me something that was in confidence so I could tell everybody here what it was. The professor said that either he or his good friend Ralph Denton, who is a very decent fella, said this won't pass constitutional muster once it gets through, but How many are Mormon that are here? There's not one Mormon. You're all smart. I take back everything I said about all of you being. I think once a Mormon.
Next question. Let's go. Thank you. We got one last question before we are done. Over there. Okay, great. Last question. Thank you. What do you think was the best decade to experience Las Vegas? And why?
Oh, of course. Well, I'm lucky because Carolyn and I got here in 1964, and we lived through a very narrow slice of Las Vegas, which is depicted in the movie Casino. And I thought that was the best time that Las Vegas ever had, that Las Vegas ever will have. There were characters. There were people who, Lefty was called Lefty. Tony was the ant. Wingy had a little thalidomide arm. And they called him Wingy to his face, and he did not object to it. These were people with personalities. We haven't had a personality since. Best decade was 75 to 85. Is that a decade?
Yeah.
All right. What? Dinner? Is that it? I want to keep on talking. I'll just turn. No.
You can say bye. Thank you, everyone, for another great dinner series. Hope to see you all at the next one. Thank you.
You a fan of On the Corner of Main Street? You're listening, so we'll assume that's a yes. So share the love, rate, review, and tell a friend to subscribe. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram @PlazaPod, on Facebook, Plaza Podcast, and feel free to write to the man himself @Jonathan Jossel. We'll see you next time, right here on the corner of Main Street.